Hi everyone, I'm Debbie Crawford, and my research question is, do earthworms show any differences in burrowing behavior into a substrate when presented with the treatment substrates of uncooked rice and uncooked lentils? My research question was investigated by testing whether earthworms will burrow in the control condition, damp soil, or the dry substrates uncooked rice and uncooked lentils. If they burrowed, then I averaged the time it takes the group to burrow. If the earthworms burrow in the two test conditions, I compared each to the control to see if the earthworms were faster or slower at burrowing in the test substrates versus the plain soil. I also determined if both test substrates showed the same impact on the desire to burrow or burrowing times. I chose to use substrate test conditions because I am interested to see if different densities and textures caused a change in the earthworm's burrowing behavior. I chose plain uncooked rice and plain uncooked lentils because their textures and densities were different from each other, but also different from the control soil. I was also interested to see if one shape was more appealing to the earthworms than another. The control for this experiment was damp soil without any test substrates added. All 8 of the earthworms burrowed into the control soil within the 3-minute time limit. The average burrowing time was 119 seconds, or just under 2 minutes. The first test condition substrate was plain uncooked rice without any soil added. None of the 8 earthworms burrowed into the substrate, even after waiting the full 3 minutes. I did not wait any longer, as none had even started to burrow. They lay on top of the rice or tried to crawl out of the cup. The second test condition substrate was plain uncooked lentils without any soil added. Only 2 of the 8 earthworms burrowed, with an average burrowing time of 177 seconds, or just under 3 minutes. I did not wait longer than 3 minutes because the 2 that burrowed completed prior to the 3-minute time limit, and the rest did not even try to burrow. My hypothesis for test treatment number 1 was that the earthworms would burrow slower in the plain uncooked rice because they had an aversion to fine soil and would have an aversion to the fine uncooked rice. My findings did not fully support this claim, as none of the earthworms even attempted to burrow in the plain uncooked rice, proving my theory incorrect. My hypothesis for test treatment number 2 was that the earthworms would burrow at a moderate rate because the plain uncooked lentils are similar in density to the coarse control soil. My findings did not support this claim, and my theory was proven incorrect, as the only 2 earthworms successfully to burrow into the lentils did so at a slower pace than the control soil burrowing. The earthworms were attracted to the control soil, but were repelled by the plain, uncooked rice substrate. They were mostly repelled by the plain, uncooked lentil substrate, apart from 2 earthworms who took a long time to decide to burrow. In both types of substrates, the earthworms tried to escape the cup, indicating their disdain for the substrate. As part of my research, I read the article Avoidance Test in Site-Specific Risk Assessment, Influence of Soil Properties on the Avoidance Response of Columbella and Earthworms. The research in the article took place in a lab to protect the earthworms from prolonged exposure to toxic agents. My research obviously was taking place at my kitchen table and used shorter periods of time and fewer earthworms compared to the study in the article, where they used longer periods of time and studied more earthworms in total. My takeaways were: earthworms do not like fine soil. Their method was to use the same amount of organic matter in different substrates to see which one the earthworms would choose, and also textures influence the earthworms' choices across all organic matter. Scientists chose to do an experiment where the earthworms would have to choose one soil over the other, whereas I was giving them only one choice of a substrate at a time. The research I conducted is the starting point of determining if earthworms have texture preferences in substrate and soil. First, I put them into well-moistened soil to get them acclimated to what I would call their happy place or favorite soil. Then I observed the 8 earthworms individually in each of the 2 substrates for a period of 3 minutes to see if any of them burrowed. My research is different than the scientist who wrote the article because I used a much shorter period of time and many fewer earthworms. But it's appropriate because it sets the expectation of the results and helps create the hypothesis for the larger experiment. It also determines that a mixture of soil should be added to lure the earthworms to burrow, creating a more expanded project for the longer research period the scientist chose to do. If I was able to test more about earthworms, I would use the same substrates as before, but mix them with damp soil to see if that changes the earthworm's attraction to the soil. It was a very interesting experiment, and I hope you enjoyed my explanation. Thank you.